If you still believe that America's glitziest cities are thriving, I'm sorry. But you've bet on a game that's about to lose. Las Vegas, Miami, New Orleans, Atlantic City, names that reek of money and glamour, yet beneath the surface, they're quietly rotting away like a shiny apple hiding a decaying core. It would only take a light sneeze from the economy for these places to transform from dream tourist destinations into graveyards of broken American dreams. Join us as we uncover the strange and fascinating truths about America's cities in today's travel documentary. Las Vegas, Nevada, the Mirage City counting down to doomsday. Don't let the dazzling neon lights, luxurious casinos, and extravagant parties fool you. Behind this glamorous mask, Las Vegas is sitting atop a ticking time bomb, a city dependent almost entirely on tourism, gambling, and conventions, industries that are among the most vulnerable to any economic shock. All it would take is an unexpected gust from the global economy, a sudden recession, and all those lights would go out, leaving behind a desolate, silent Vegas in the cold desert. And it's not just a theory. During the 2008 global financial crisis, Las Vegas had the highest home foreclosure rate in the nation. Once bustling neighborhoods turned into ghost towns, with weeds growing through the cracks of abandoned driveways. You'd think that disaster would have been a hard-learned lesson. But no, more than a decade later, Vegas is still gambling recklessly with its own fate. In 2023, even as the economy was supposedly in recovery, 1 in 4 households struggled to pay rent. Debt and hidden poverty spread silently beneath the city's shiny surface. And the most terrifying part, if tourism declines, those glittering casino halls will turn into cold, empty ruins, where even the buzz of the slot machines will fall silent. No lights, no music, only abandoned buildings and deadly silence. Las Vegas would no longer be the city of lights. It would become a graveyard of betrayed dreams. Each passing day, Las Vegas is betting its very existence on a dangerous game, where one wrong card could bring the whole house of sand crashing down before the storm even hits. So what do you think? Will Las Vegas draw the ace and escape disaster, or pull the joker and seal its own fate? Hit the comments and tell me which side you're betting on. Just remember, no card counting allowed here. We play fair. Atlantic City, New Jersey, when the red and black dream turns into an urban nightmare. If you think Las Vegas is fragile, Atlantic City stands as the living, breathing proof of what happens when a city sells its soul to gambling and tourism, and loses. Once dreaming of becoming the Las Vegas of the East Coast, Atlantic City threw itself headfirst into a casino boom without any safety net. They bet everything, and lost it all. In just 12 months, 5 major casinos shuttered one after another, triggering a tsunami of unemployment, bankruptcies, and unprecedented despair. Streets once packed with tourists now stand deserted, with for sale signs swinging in the wind. Bustling neighborhoods have turned into wastelands where darkness and violence creep through every alley. But the tragedy doesn't stop there. 25% of Atlantic City's population now lives below the poverty line, struggling daily amidst the ruins of a collapsed dream. Many once believed that the glittering casinos would bring eternal prosperity, but in the end, all they got was abandonment and a spreading wave of poverty. Atlantic City isn't just a failed city. It's a chilling warning to any place daring to stake its entire future on one fragile, unsustainable industry. Tourism can boom today and collapse tomorrow, leaving behind urban zombies wandering in despair. In my personal view, Atlantic City didn't just fail because of bad luck. It failed because of arrogance and a lack of strategic vision. A city that bets its entire future on gambling and tourism without building a solid economic foundation is inevitably doomed. Atlantic City is an expensive lesson for any place that thinks bright lights can replace sustainable growth. Miami, Florida, the tropical paradise on the verge of an apocalypse. In the eyes of the world, Miami is the eternal tropical dream. White sandy beaches, endless blue seas, and gleaming skyscrapers stretching out toward the ocean. But behind its glamorous facade, Miami is sliding ever closer to collapse, day by day, hour by hour, under the frightening indifference of both its residents and tourists. On the surface, everything seems perfect, But in reality, Miami is being strangled by skyrocketing living costs, ranking among the most expensive cities for housing in the United States. Ordinary people, service workers, tourism laborers, small business owners are being crushed under immense financial pressure. An economy tied to fragile sectors like services, tourism, and real estate is only one minor recession away from tearing apart its shiny outer shell. If the tourist stream ever dries up, the luxurious restaurants, lavish hotels, and bustling streets will swiftly slip into clinical death, triggering a domino effect that nothing can stop. Real estate prices would crash, businesses would go bankrupt, residents would flee, a scenario already looming on the horizon. And that's just the beginning. Climate change is dealing a death blow to Miami. Rising sea levels are swallowing beaches, destroying drainage systems, and eroding the very foundations of the city. Every hurricane season sees the city drown a little more, and the risk of Miami vanishing forever beneath the ocean is no longer a distant theory. Major insurance companies have already begun to flee, refusing to insure properties here, rendering even the priciest real estate worthless after a major storm. When no one dares to buy homes, when investors pull out, Miami will collapse from within. No gunfire, no explosions, only a slow rise of devastation and despair, rising with the tides. Miami's doomsday clock is ticking down fast. The city is surviving on borrowed time, borrowed breaths, and temporary miracles. And when nature strikes, there will be no salvation. Detroit, Michigan, the ghost city, when the American dream turns into a nightmare. Detroit was once the beating heart of America's industrial power, building the legendary automotive brands that symbolized the American dream. But today, all that remains are crumbling structures, deserted streets as silent as graveyards, and the faint breath of a city that once roared with pride. In 2013, Detroit became the largest city in U.S. history to declare bankruptcy, a global shockwave marking one of the most painful collapses in modern American history. Over 300,000 residents fled in despair, leaving behind a ghost town where weeds overrun sidewalks and once bustling neighborhoods are now wastelands of abandoned debris. Detroit didn't just lose its population, it lost hope itself. Poverty rates remain above 30%, while unemployment, crime, and despair creep into every corner. The widely publicized revitalization programs have mostly been little more than temporary painkillers for a cancer that has already metastasized. Even worse, Detroit still clings to the fate of the auto industry, a sector now rattled by rapid shifts, electric vehicles, automation, global demand declines, and supply chain crises. Every time the auto industry coughs, Detroit falls into a deeper coma. Detroit has already died once, and without a true economic revolution, a complete break from its blind reliance on traditional manufacturing, the city will eventually become a true ghost city. No longer a proud symbol, but a bitter reminder that no glory lasts forever without change. Fresno, California, when the agricultural dream turns into a nightmare of poverty. Fresno, once hailed as the heart of California's agricultural bounty, where orchards overflowed and vast fields stretched to the horizon, is now caught in a dangerous downward spiral from which it can't seem to escape. The entire economy of Fresno is shackled to agriculture, an industry inherently vulnerable to disaster, natural calamities, droughts, climate change, and even global market fluctuations. A single failed harvest or a groundwater crisis can wipe out thousands of jobs overnight, plunging entire communities into chaos. The consequences are already clear. 23% of Fresno's population now lives in poverty, nearly 3 times the national average. Unemployment rates here are also double the national figure, making Fresno one of the most financially unstable cities in America. But the story doesn't end there. While residents' incomes have stagnated, housing costs in Fresno have skyrocketed uncontrollably, sparking a severe cost of living crisis. Fresno's people are increasingly trapped, working tirelessly, yet still unable to cover even basic living expenses. Today, Fresno is not only battling harsh climate conditions, but also grappling with a smoldering economic storm, where each passing day widens the gap between rich and poor, threatening to erase the once revered agricultural dream admired across the nation. Bakersfield, California, the oilfield city, sliding into freefall. Bakersfield, once famous for its vast oil fields and sprawling farmlands, is now facing a bleak future with no clear way out. The city's economy relies almost entirely on two extremely recession-sensitive sectors: oil and agriculture. When oil prices crash or when agriculture suffers from drought or climate change, Bakersfield immediately reels. And this is no longer just a hypothetical. It is already happening. Today, 20% of Bakersfield's population lives below the poverty line, a shocking statistic for a city once proud of its abundant resources. Unemployment rates consistently surpass the national average, highlighting the city's acute vulnerability to economic instability. Worse yet, Bakersfield has very few backup resources to fall back on. There is no diversified economy, no strong tech foundation, no major financial or educational hubs to stabilize it. Bakersfield is like a tiny boat adrift on a vast ocean, needing only one big wave to sink completely. As the world moves toward clean energy, oil, the lifeline of Bakersfield, is becoming an increasingly obsolete relic of a fading era. And if the city doesn't swiftly and comprehensively restructure, Bakersfield will not only decline, but could become a dead zone that the rest of the world leaves behind. New Orleans, Louisiana, a city sinking, and no one can save it. When people think of New Orleans, they picture vibrant Mardi Gras parades, lively historic neighborhoods, and a rich, soulful music scene. But behind this cheerful mask, New Orleans is gasping for breath in a survival battle most tourists know nothing about. Nearly 20 years after the devastating disaster known as Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans has yet to truly recover. The city stands as a stark monument to a failed recovery. A chilling 24% of its residents live below the poverty line, a figure that tells of tens of thousands of families still struggling daily in the shadows of poverty and despair. Even worse, New Orleans has bet everything on tourism, an industry that is extremely fragile. A single blow from a natural disaster or economic downturn could cause tourist numbers to plummet, setting off a chain reaction of shuttered shops, hotels, and restaurants, toppling like dominoes. With no strong manufacturing base and no thriving tech industry, New Orleans is balancing precariously atop a crumbling foundation. And what about the city's infrastructure? It's in alarmingly poor shape. Levees, drainage systems, roads, and bridges all are severely deteriorated, turning the city into a ticking time bomb. As climate change drives sea levels higher and storms grow fiercer, New Orleans is running out of places to hide. It's not a matter of if, but when, and time is running out. New Orleans is sinking beneath our feet, and nothing can stop it. When the final notes of music fade, the world may have to acknowledge a painful truth. This could be the first major American city to be permanently claimed by climate change. Next in our travel documentary series about U.S. cities facing decline, we move on to Part 8. Reno, Nevada, the city of illusions, and the shattered tech dream. Once hailed as a desert miracle, Reno shot to fame thanks to a wave of investment from Tesla, Amazon, and a host of major tech companies. For a moment, it seemed the city had discovered the formula to transform itself into a new economic powerhouse. But the truth? It was just a glamorous illusion, and the cracks beneath the surface are becoming increasingly visible. Reno expanded too quickly, too recklessly, while its core foundation remained fragile. Housing prices skyrocketed, living costs soared by the day, but average wages failed to keep pace. Local residents found themselves pushed to the margins, while infrastructure, roads, schools, hospitals, buckled under the overwhelming pressure. A greater shock is silently forming. Despite donning a shiny new tech facade, Reno has never truly broken free from its roots, tourism and entertainment. And as everyone knows, tourism is the first industry to crumble during an economic downturn. If a recession like 2008 strikes again, the tourists will vanish. Tech investments will withdraw, and Reno will plunge into a downward spiral with no brakes. The image of a fast-developing city is deceiving even its own people. When the tech bubble bursts, Reno won't just decline, it will collapse into a deep, rapid, and brutal crisis, unlike anything seen elsewhere in the country. The dream of a Silicon Valley of the desert is trembling. The question is no longer if Reno will fall into crisis, but how much longer it can hold out before shattering completely. San Bernardino, California, the city of the living dead. San Bernardino is no longer a living city. It's a ghost, a walking corpse. In 2012, San Bernardino made headlines for all the wrong reasons when it declared bankruptcy, dragging down its entire financial system and public services with it. More than a decade later, every promise of recovery has proven to be nothing but smoke and mirrors. Today's reality: crime rates are soaring, poverty blankets the city, and essential services like police, fire departments, and schools have been gutted to the point of barely functioning. On paper, San Bernardino boasts cheap housing, but the truth is, no one wants to live in a place rotting from the inside out. The houses are crumbling, job opportunities are virtually non-existent, and incomes are so low they barely cover basic survival. Residents are trapped in a vicious cycle of poverty, crime, despair, with no escape. Once thriving neighborhoods have decayed into abandoned lots where violence erupts daily as a matter of routine. Police forces are so understaffed and slow to respond that many residents don't even bother calling 911 when conflict arises. San Bernardino isn't just dangerous, it's a humanitarian disaster unfolding in plain sight on American soil. And the most terrifying part, it would only take a minor national economic stumble for San Bernardino to vanish entirely from the map, as if it had never existed. San Bernardino is on the brink of disappearing for good. What do you think? How much longer can it hold on? Drop a comment. Oh, who knows, you might just turn out to be a true urban prophecy expert. El Paso, Texas, when a city dies and no one notices. Can you hear the faint whisper of a dying city? If not, just visit El Paso. Here, under the blazing sun of Texas, a slow, silent, and irreversible collapse is unfolding. People still walk the streets, shops still open their doors, and life seems to continue. But look closer. El Paso is rotting from the inside out. Without waiting for an apocalypse, El Paso has already begun its descent into darkness through the fragile economic structure it built for itself. A large city plagued by persistent poverty, heavily reliant on sectors that could crumble with even minor disruptions: the military, education, and retail. 3 rotting wooden pillars desperately trying to hold up a heavy roof, waiting for the slightest breeze to bring it all crashing down. You can feel the tension, like a guitar string pulled to its breaking point. A cut to the defense budget, and thousands of jobs could vanish overnight. A weakening education system and countless students, teachers, and small businesses that depend on them would tumble into chaos. Retail, already fragile in the era of e-commerce, is just one final push away from total collapse. Meanwhile, the cost of living in El Paso is spiraling out of control. Rents are skyrocketing. Basic necessities like food and services have become terrifyingly expensive. The city's poor are being cornered into an invisible trap where every single day becomes a brutal fight for survival. With wages stagnant and prices soaring out of reach, hope itself drains away with every last penny. And then the worst will happen, quietly, without sirens or alarms. When the U.S. economy merely sneezes, El Paso will collapse like a rotting building. No one will save it. No one will look back. The city won't just grow poorer, it will become a literal dead zone, abandoned, dangerous, forgotten, as if it had never existed at all. If you're living in El Paso today and think everything's still fine, ask yourself, can you hear the sound of cracks growing louder beneath your feet? Cities that will become forbidden zones in the future. The dark countdown has begun. Today, some places in America still seem bustling, lively, and lit up at night. But in just a few years, they will transform into true dead zones, places no one dares to enter, where only the haunting memories of a faded American dream remain. Look closely at the cities already buckling under the weight of poverty, violence, and economic collapse. San Bernardino, once bankrupt and now unable to rise under waves of crime and broken public services. El Paso, suffocating under the weight of economic dependency and skyrocketing living costs. New Orleans, teetering on the brink of disaster, battered by natural catastrophes, rising seas, and crumbling infrastructure. Reno, masked with a glittering tech facade, but hollow underneath, ready to vanish the moment the investment money dries up. One major economic crash, one extreme natural disaster, or even a simple shift in the flow of capital and resources, any one of these could erase these cities from the map, as if they had never existed at all. Imagine silent streets, shuttered stores, crumbling houses, and violence running rampant. Cities once vibrant and full of life now standing empty. Ghost towns where even the faintest flicker of hope is crushed under the iron heel of despair. That dark future is no longer distant. It has already begun its countdown, ticking away, day by day. And when that moment finally arrives, there will be no blaring red alarms to warn you. There will only be two types of people left, those who fled in time and those trapped forever in the Deadlands. Those who stay will face crime, poverty, and the collapse of basic life services. When a city starts to decay, those who remain aren't just facing hardships. They must brace themselves for a real survival battle, where even the simplest necessities like clean water, electricity, or a nearby hospital become unreachable luxuries. Once the budget dries up, once businesses shut down and the middle class flees, a city rapidly transforms into an unwanted war zone. Crime rates spiral out of control. As job opportunities vanish and poverty tightens its grip on families, robberies, street violence, and even bloody confrontations will become the new normal of daily life. At the same time, the already exhausted healthcare system will completely collapse. Hospitals that once overflowed with patients will shut their doors one by one, unable to operate without funding. The wounded will have to fend for themselves. Patients will be forced to choose between buying medicine or food. A simple injury could easily turn into a death sentence because there will be nowhere left to get treatment. Electricity and water, the two most basic elements of civilized life, will also be cut back piece by piece. Prolonged blackouts and unsafe drinking water will quickly turn residential areas into breeding grounds for disease. Helplessness will spread like an infection, crushing every effort to survive. Staying behind isn't just about living. Staying means fighting, hour by hour, day by day, in an environment where even the most fundamental aspects of life are crumbling and falling apart. Those who choose to remain must learn to survive in a society with no order, no safety, and no trust left. And the most bitter truth, no miracle will come to save them. The most glamorous cities are also the most dangerous time bombs. Don't let the dazzling lights and towering skyscrapers fool you. America's flashiest cities, Las Vegas, Miami, New Orleans, are actually financial time bombs, ticking down to their inevitable explosions. Las Vegas, the beating heart of America's tourism and gambling industries, operates entirely on the flimsy belief that the flow of people and money will never stop. But history has shown, all it takes is a mild recession, a large-scale tourism slump, and Vegas will plummet uncontrollably. An economy built on gambling and chance cannot withstand the brutal storms of reality. Miami, the golden city of beaches and luxury real estate, fares no better. A volatile housing market, reliance on tourism, and the looming threats of rising seas and hurricanes have left Miami standing on a thin sheet of ice, ready to crack at any moment. A financial shock or an environmental disaster could quickly drag the entire city into chaos. New Orleans, rich in culture and history, sits atop a powder keg of its own. Heavy dependence on tourism, crumbling infrastructure, and relentless assaults by Mother Nature mean that one decisive blow, a major hurricane or an economic collapse, could send the city into a downward spiral from which it would never recover. These cities may look glamorous, but beneath the neon lights and golden beaches lies deep financial instability. When the next shockwave hits, and it will, these places won't just decline. They will explode, dragging millions into an abyss of unemployment, poverty, and despair. The brightest lights often burn out the fastest, and in these cities the clock has already started ticking. Beneath the glamorous makeup, many of America's largest cities are decaying day by day like castles built on sand. Personally, I believe that without urgent restructuring and profound change, Some of these cities will never rise again. But what about you? Which city do you think will be the first to disappear from the map? Leave a comment below. Who knows, your prediction might just become the most accurate prophecy. We've just explored the strange and eye-opening truths about America's cities. Hopefully, this gives you a new perspective on the dazzling yet fragile urban landscapes of the United States. If you found this content helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to support us in continuing to bring you honest analysis. And don't forget to leave a comment. We value every opinion shared. See you in the next video.